Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of This Week in Real Estate, hosted by yours truly, a bearded man of real estate. We are live everywhere you can be live, on Facebook, Instagram. We're also live over on Clubhouse. Make sure that. And I'm really excited about today's show. We have a ton of industry tea to talk about. The show title today is Chaos in Housing. It's recorded live Wednesday, August 7th, 2024. And this is episode 285 of This Week in Real Estate. So thanks everybody for tuning in. Be sure you mute it over on Clubhouse. Let's see if I can do it. Moderators help me out with that. Whoa, what is happening? There you go. All right. If you are joining on Clubhouse, you can actually raise your hand. If you have a bio, you can come up and then talk to us and add your voice to the podcast. And if you're joining us on any of the other streams, almost all of the other streams, like YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, you can comment. I can display your comment just like Matt LaMarche did. He said, yay, back on top. He's first today. Olivier is also here from Canada. He said, I'll let you win because my idea inspired the thumbnail. His idea did inspire the thumbnail indirectly. We were talking about something being built like the House of Cards, which that's where the thumbnail came from. So over in the contributor chat. And if you're on Instagram, you can comment and I'll try to read your comment and your username too. What's up, Rob? Rob Whitfield is a new follower. Thanks, Rob. So I will try to, I have that over on this screen over here. And sometimes I can see it. Sometimes I don't see it though. So if you need to repeat your comment over on Instagram, that's totally okay. I am fine with that. Well, I'm excited today. We got a lot of industry tea to talk about. We don't have much news, but I'm really glad that we have industry tea to talk about because I have a new little intro. Industry tea. It's tea time with Ray. It is tea time, my friends. Olivier says it's like a funeral. Change it. No, this is not a funeral. This is what people get. People get married to this song. How could that be a funeral? No, I have a couple of different background sounds for our industry tea, but the main thing I wanted everyone to hear was that's it right there. So we have a new industry tea sounder. What's up, Christy? Eric Daniel says, pinkies up, let's go. Actually, I need to go I have some tea in the other, I need to actually go get my tea, but I forgot. All right. So without further ado, let's talk about this. Zillow Gone Wild is getting sued. Zillow Gone Wild gets hit with a $300K copyright infringement suit. What? So this is, there's a Washington photographer that's suing Zillow Gone Wild, who used her photo without permission in 2022. They've been attempting to negotiate for a while, I guess. And now she just went for the max judgment of $300K. So here's the story. In the beginning, is it the beginning of the end for Zillow Gone Wild? That's a nice incendiary little lead in there. So that's the question the accounts fans are asking after professional photographer Jennifer Bouma, Bouma, filed a $300,000 copyright infringement lawsuit against Zillow Gone Wild's parent company, Kale Salad, on July 29th. According to the court documents, listing agents Barbara Orr and John Logue, Logue, hired Bouma to take photos of a sprawling 4-bedroom, 2.5 bathroom medieval style. Oh, I remember this. There's no way I'm showing this photo, by the way. But it's a medieval style estate in Monroe, Washington in September of 2021. The listing quickly garnered attention of the internet, with Zillow Gone Wild's posting Bouma's photos of a courtyard dragon statue, Arthurian dining room, and its Substack, Instagram, and X, formerly known as Twitter. So she said the photographer didn't realize Zillow Gone Wild had posted the photos until April of 2024. Since the account founder, Samir Mazrai, never asked for consent. As the copyright owner, she attempted to negotiate a payment of $12,500 to $15,000 per photo. However, Boma's attorney told Fast Company the payment negotiations with Kel Salad and its insurance providers stalled. So, can you guys get in trouble for reposting something that you found on Zillow? Zillow Gone Wild are in the business of copying the work of others to display it on their website and social media, Deal said. Well, yeah. But so can you not, because it's on Zillow, can you not show a Zillow page and do a green screen and say, "Hey, look at this house," or just flick through the Zillow page on your Instagram? And the United States Copyright Office Fair Use Doctrine explainer, the court said, are more likely to find that using copyright protected works for nonprofit and education and non-commercial use is okay, especially if the creator added something new to the copyrighted work. The explainer noted that courts also consider the quantity and quality of the copyright material. I guess I could technically show it because I don't make a dime on this show. So I'm a not-for-profit. The good question, Mandy Wheeler said, why doesn't Zillow get sued too? Anyone other than MLS should not be allowed, right? Well, I can't remember when it happened, Mandy, but this is a wonderful question. Zillow is a real estate broker now. So they get an IDX feed, just like my website has an IDX feed. You go to search.pixelproperties.com and you can look at any properties almost in the whole state of Arkansas, and you can see the photos there and everything. And I won't get sued because even though I don't have the rights to those photos, because it is in my IDX agreement that I'm only displaying what another agent has put up there. So now Zillow is also a brokerage. And can basically do the same thing. I can't remember if they did it in 2021 or not, but if it was before the time they were a brokerage, whenever you upload something to Zillow, it talks about how you're basically giving them the rights, and you're saying you have the rights to this photo, and by listing it and putting it on Zillow, you're saying, and having an account there, you're saying that you're giving those rights to them to use as well. Also something very interesting. Zillow has a new program out, Listing Showcase. And on the Listing Showcase, they basically say that they can use your photos for some promotional materials too. And that may be how it is always, but I did notice that when I took some of the information and was looking at it. But that's, in short, why Zillow is not getting sued. It's the same reason why Remax, Coldwell Banker, all the other companies are not getting sued for displaying this photo who did work in that area. Hey, look at that. Olivier, thanks for the $1. $1 Canadian. What is that? Is that like $10 American or 10 cents? I don't know, Olivier.
70 cents.
70 cents. Thanks, buddy. I am officially not a not-for-profit. Mandy said, right, but there's a rule that a brokerage can't advertise other agencies' listings. Well, the rule says, in general, I'm generalizing because I guess some states may change, but the rule says that a broker can advertise another agent's listings if it is through an IDX feed. So if you're displaying what the IDX has, then you can. Now, I can't take another agent's listing and the photos and everything and then put it all over my social media unless I get the permission from that agent. But that's because I am a real estate agent. That has nothing to do. If I wasn't a real estate agent, like I don't know the Zillow Gone Wild, I don't know what the rules would have to be, copyright / fair use rules for them. So that's what we're going to find out. Is this fair use? Now, as an agent, supposedly, I could go to Zillow and show those photos because I'm a real estate agent and, we are cooperating in a way with the IDX feeds and that kind of thing. So I'm basically just showing what is on there. The difference is if you take those photos, download them, then upload them, that could be different. I guess that's what the courts are going to decide. Is that different? In addition to the above, this is a quote from the explainer. In addition to the above, other factors may also be considered by a court in weighing fair use questions, depending on the circumstances. Courts evaluate fair use claims on a case-by-case basis. The outcome of any given case depends on the fact-specific inquiry. That means the number, there's no pro forma. I wonder if it has to be related to the amount of money made off of the photo. Like, can you sue for $300,000 if the guy made 10 cents on the photo? Like, if I displayed those photos right now, could I be sued for $300,000 because I don't have permission to do it, even though I've obviously only made 70 cents from Olivier? The case is straightforward copyright infringement. The University of Sussex copyright law expert Andreas Guadmaz told FC, nothing that Mersey tends to post listing photos as is, striking out the ability to argue that Zillow Gone Wild is using photos in a newer transformative way. So I guess what if you took those photos and then added commentary on them? So I see this a lot where real estate agents are taking photos from the MLS and saying, whoa, check out this property, look at this. And they're just showing you the property. I'm assuming because they're a real estate agent, there's some kind of IDX usage where they could get away with it. I mean, it's probably more ethical to ask the agent. But if you didn't ask the agent, could you be in big trouble? That's a huge question for me. Would it go to copyright or would it go to license law? Let's see. Deal said he's fully prepared to take Zillow Gone to. He's fully prepared to take on Zillow Gone Wild. Nothing that his client's lawsuit may lead to a flood of complaints from other photographers, especially Mesri moves forward with a 9-episode show on HGTV. Oh, so now he's hit it big. I'd missed this part when I read it the first time. Social media favorite Zillow Gone Wild greenlit for new HGTV show. Wow. Okay. Did she really find out in April? That's that's going to be one of the big questions. Can we get browser history? Or did she find out because this started making waves late last year about a 9-episode HGTV show? I don't know. We'll see what happens. I think for real estate agents, it's more about the license law, IDX feed, all that kind of stuff. I think a non-real estate agent, I think then you're in the copyright fair use arena. And if you're an attorney, just chime in. All right. All right, Mindy says, I understand that. Same as cheap old houses. They got famous from reposting listings, and now they're a TV show. Huh. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, if I was the seller, I would love it. Like, please expose my property to the highest number of people possible so I can possibly find somebody to buy my house, especially if it's unique. So if I'm the seller, I'm loving that. If I'm the real estate agent, I'm loving that. I wonder if Mizrahi, and I guess maybe the photographer asked the real estate agents if he had permission to use it. But if the real estate agents sent it to him, Barbara Orr and John Lagour, if the real estate agents were like, hey, let's get some more exposure on this listing, this is a crazy house, then that would be part of the marketing of the property. Could the Zillow Gone Wild guy say, well, we were just marketing the property on behalf of the agents. It's weird. I can't wait to see what happens, because I know there are some photographers that, and real estate agents, you guys may not know this, but check your agreement with your photographer. Oh, what? You don't have an agreement with the photographer? Then how do you know your usage rights for the photos that you're receiving and paying for? So check your agreement with your photographer and make sure that you have full rights to the photos. And if not, learn where those rights are restricted.
I was just going to mention that, Ray, that, that I had an agreement early on with my photographer, and for just this reason. I mean, you got to have rights to the photos, especially if you're going to shift over to social media, go to, any other form of marketing with the listings that you ordered pictures for.
Yeah. And do you have full rights, or do you only have rights for the time period the property is listed? Do you only have rights to market the property?
Yeah, my photographer, leaned right into it and didn't really care and said, "Yeah, you're paying me for the pictures, and they're yours." So I don't know that most photographers will have an issue, but if they do, maybe you need to find a different photographer.
They're right. Well, Mandy sleeps with her photographer, so that's why.
Hey now.
She said, my photographer has a bigger beard than yours. Haha, he also happens to be my husband. Aw. That's one way to get the rights, Mandy. The rights are half hers anyway. Dusty Martin of Arizona says, I'm back after the summer hiatus. Welcome back. In my area, we have problems with agents stealing photos of previous agents when they relist, but in our MLS, we have to give credit to the listing agent when sharing. Yeah, we have, there's no hard cut rule for us. There's nothing that says you have to tell the agent, you have to get permission. If an agent says, yeah, you got permission, don't mention me or whatever, then we can do that. But in general, we're supposed to mention the agent and the brokerage that has it listed. If we're talking about a property and in some way trying to market the property and advertise it for sale, which is what we do as real estate agents. But there's no rule after a property is no longer for sale or those photos are out there. I don't know what the rule is on just going and using those photos and saying, hey, look at this house that sold in our area. If it's off the market, what rights do I have as an agent to it? That's a very gray area. Mandy said in Maine, we have to ask the listing agent if we want to use their photo. And one time I needed drone photos and saw the previous listing had it. Yeah. There's been a couple of times when I've reused a listing agent's photo, like the outside front photo, because it had green grass. And at the time I was listing it, everything was brown and dead. So we asked them if we could use it. And they were like, yeah, but you'll have to steal it off the MLS, which meant that I only got to use the low res version, but it still showed some of the landscaping and that kind of stuff. Mandy said we're laughing so hard over here. Good. All right. Any other comments on that, Clubhouse? I thought I saw somebody unmute, but maybe not. Oh yeah. What's up, Matt?
No, yeah, I was just going to say, I used to turn mine into NFTs and sell them on the dark web, actually.
Hey, that's
on
not
my
a bad
listing
idea.
photos.
Yeah.
So, but I would give the photographer a cut every time. We only accepted Bitcoin though.
That's good. Well, that's a great way to also muddy up the future blockchain title when you're selling the photo as the NFT and not the actual home. That's going to really be great in the future. Have you ever seen those listings online where people are like, I bought this, but it's just a photo of the fridge. It's not the fridge. And they're leaving the review because so many people paid $100 for a photo. Yeah.
Generally what I did was I included the rights to all the exterior landscaping. So people can come collect those bushes anytime they want.
You can pick the flowers.
Yeah.
Limited use. All right. Well, how do you guys feel about a consumer watchdog coming out and telling consumers what they should be paying you, the real estate agent? it seems a little short-sighted. The consumer watchdog advises buyers to pay agents 2% or less. 2% or less. So I don't know, just to kind of give any consumers watching this an overview. In our market, it's going to be different market to market, but in our market, 2% is what we take as a buyer agent as a discount situation, usually when it's a new construction property. And the reason why we're okay with that is because it's generally fairly smooth. It's a little bit easier than working retail. There's not when the inspection comes, you send the whole thing to the builder and they fix all of it. And usually they have a lot more inventory, like they're listing more and more. And so normally in our market, that's a discount, a pretty big cut. Well, the Consumer Federation of America says that's what people should be paying buyer agents. In advance of the August 17th deadline to implement the new rule under the proposed National Association of Realtors settlement, the CFA released a proposed criteria for both seller contracts and buyer contracts. But on Tuesday, the Consumer Watchdog offered advice to consumers on how to deal with the settlement business practice changes, including prohibition on listing brokers from making offers of compensation to buyer brokers on multiple listing services, sellers no longer being required to offer buyer broker compensation, and a requirement that brokers and agents sign contracts with buyers. The new rules require changes. Many agents will try to preserve their seller compensation after the buyer agents maintain 5 to 6% overall commissions. What? Many agents will try to preserve seller compensation of buyer agents to maintain 5 to 6%. Oh, I see what he's saying. So he's saying listing it. So selling agents and seller agents, I guess this is why it's a consumer. A selling agent is someone who represents the buyer. A listing agent represents the seller. I know that's confusing, but when he said seller compensation, I couldn't figure out what he was trying to say. So he's saying that a listing agent is going to try to still list the property to 5 to 6% to maintain paying the buyer. The new rules provide both opportunities and risk for consumers. Knowledgeable home buyers and sellers will be able to take advantage of the opportunities and avoid the risk. He said 3 primary pieces of advice, including consumers discuss and negotiate their agent's compensation and dollar amounts. The basic reason, and he said up to 2% of the home sale price. The basic reason is the industry has been sued by the U.S. Department of Justice, blah, blah, blah. He kind of goes into the history of it, class action settlement. He pointed out that in areas of New York City outside the footprint of the Real Estate Board, REBNY, which has commission rules similar to NAR's, overall commission rates range from 3 to 4%. He said, I'm not changing from the prediction many years ago when decoupling rates will eventually decline an average of 3% and 4% for those agents who are involved. So I think he's seeing this as a decrease of 1% to the buyer agent just by having this rule, and they're trying to basically force agents to take less. I want you guys to sound off. Before I tell you what bugs me about this, I would love to hear your opinion, other real estate agents around the country. How do you feel about a consumer watchdog advising buyers to pay agents 2% or less? Do you feel that's fair? Does it seem unfair? Does it seem low? Does it seem high in your market? What is it in your market?
I think we may have the same concern, but did these attorneys that got the settlement, are they the same ones that hired the watchdog?
That's
Because apparently they can negotiate for their fee better than they can ours.
a good point. Yeah, they get like 30%. No, it's supposedly the Consumer Federation of America is a watchdog that's always been there. I mean,
It's like more static. I mean, who cares? Anybody can profess to, I don't know, be an advocate or whatever. I know that I know what I'm worth. I know that I can prove my worth and show my worth. And I know that many people accept what I'm worth and pay me what I'm worth, regardless of what they say. So, I mean, to me, it's background noise like most of this stuff.
Yeah, Dusty says, LOL, these fools. I just closed a deal where I saved and made my buyers more than double my full fee because I spotted an underwriter home off market. She says, by all means, hire that discount agent that doesn't know jack or give a crap about your equity long term.
Hey, easy there with the jack. Easy now.
Yeah,
Settle down.
You want people that know jack, okay? You don't want people that don't know jack. Dude, why aren't you using that in your marketing? Are you using that in your marketing?
I'll probably get sued by GE because of just Jack, right?
No, it's your name. You can't be sued for using your name. You've got to do something like, what? You don't know Jack? I mean, that's got to be, you've got to go that
I know
route.
Jack.
I know Jack. Do you know Jack? I see Jack squat. There's your gym post, Jack. Okay.
Killing me. Here we go.
Olivier says, I think consumers should not pay lawyers more than $50 per hour or $5,000 per case. Yeah. Can we get some consumer protections out there for it? So here's my gripe. The consumer watchdog is so focused on the number that they're missing the service. And it's easy to say, well, you're overpaying real estate agents. And I would agree with you. Most consumers are overpaying real estate agents. However, it's because they're hiring the wrong one. And that is their fault. There's plenty of real estate. I mean, you can whisper real estate agents in a restaurant and get surrounded instantly. There's a ton of real estate agents. Interview real estate agents. Talk to them about what they're going to do. Ask them what the services that they're going to provide you as a buyer are. If they're going to pay money to market you to sellers, to hopefully find off-market options for you because you can't get into this neighborhood you want to get into, and they're going out in 100-degree heat and door knocking on your behalf, and maybe they've been doing that for 10, 15 years, and they know all the sellers in that area. Well, what's that worth? More than 2%. I mean, if you want somebody just to do paperwork, then you're looking at 1 to 2. So I think the Consumer Federation of America is not watching out for the consumer. They're just getting wrapped up in the money and not even talking about the services offered. It doesn't seem like they've even explored a menu of services that agents could offer. And there's another article that we're going to cover today that says 47% of real estate agents didn't sell anything. And so, yeah, I mean, if you're using one of those agents, you're probably overpaying at 2% because they're not doing anything. Unless they're brand new and a hustler, I'll make the caveat for them. But you got to shop. You got to pick an agent that's actually going to do the work for you and then determine what value is that work for you. Just having an arbitrary number and then telling an agent, well, I'm not going to use you unless you go less. It's pretty ridiculous. It's extremely ridiculous, in my opinion. For what? I don't know why we froze over on TWire Pod, but we sure did. We're still live over at Ray Zorback. If you're an Instagram user and you're like, where'd they go?
I guess if you're a consumer advocacy group and you don't take service into consideration at all, when a consumer can either get a phenomenal benefit from great service or massively screwed by it, how much water do you hold as a advocacy group?
Yeah, it doesn't sound like you're advocating for much. Yeah, I would 100% agree, Jack.
Pretty narrow.
Well, on the heels of this report comes a report from Redfin, who's been cutting their numbers drastically. The typical buyer's agent earns 2.55% in commission, a rate that has declined since the NAR settlement was announced in March. So they go into detail here, but I just wanted to mention this because I thought it was interesting that both of these articles kind of released at the same time. The Consumer Federation of America is saying you should put it at 2%, and then talking about the average agent making 2.5%. So basically, you're saying only pay 2% and get yourself a below average agent. That's kind of what it sounds like to me. But the typical U.S. home seller pays 2.55% commission on the real estate hired by the home buyers. That has trickled down from 2.62% in January before the settlement. So it was at 2.6. Now it's at 2.55. So it's down 0.5%. And there's the chart. The chart looks terrible, but it's only a 0.05% drop there. I'm anxious. I think that number is going to get closer and closer to zero, because this number is what sellers are offering. And I think in more and more markets, you're going to see sellers offering a lower amount, but maybe buyer agents who know their stuff getting paid more. What's up, Lindsay? What's up, JD Leonard? That's bananas. I mean, wait, hang on. Wait, don't go far. That's just for you, JD. Yeah, it's it's going to be some tight times for a lot of buyer agents out there that have just been relying on the listing agents to negotiate commissions on their behalf. I think they're going to really have to show the value, and when they can define that value and then we've been working on gathering our client stories this year, and I can't wait until we put out some case studies that say, hey, this is what we did for this client and how we found them the house. This is what we did for this client, how we found them the house. I mean, there's some neighborhoods and markets that we've been in for years and years and years, and we know like the back of our hand. And I mean, if somebody comes up to me and wants me to take a huge discount to help them get in there, we're just gonna say no. I mean, it's not worth it. We could work with someone else who is willing to pay us more. So we'll see how it kind of shakes out. And plus, if you're really good at negotiating, I can make them way more than my fee. So I mean, I don't know. Commission percentages have declined in all but 3 of the most populous U.S. metros since the NAR settlement, but decreases are small. I thought that was an interesting piece of this. Commission percentages have declined most in Detroit, increased incrementally in Seattle and Cincinnati. Wow, I cannot speak today. So they went up from 2.93 to 2.95 in Cincinnati. They're highest in Austin, 2.99, Cincinnati, 2.95, San Antonio, 2.91. They're lowest in Nassau County, New York, 1.95, and Providence, Rhode Island, 2.05, and Anaheim, 2.11. I really want to look into these cities and see why is that so different? That's wild.
Ray, you really hit on a sentence that you threw out there of it's going to be hard times for buyers agents who rely on listing agents, but it's going to be really interesting to see what happens over the next 6 months or a year with sort of the buyer listing agents. I think have always been able, for the most part, to defend themselves with any client, but and buyers agents would catch one every so often, or some of them would catch one every so often, or just rely on being the first one to make the phone call to a buyer. And it's going to be a massive change in our business, and maybe, hopefully for the better.
Yeah, I think initially it's going to be a problem. I mean, I was talking to my coach about it last week, or I guess it was this week. It feels like a week ago. We had somebody call on a property, and they said, how much is this seller paying? And they're not offering anything. So they're offering zero up front, but they're willing to pay 100% of the agent's fee. They just want the agent to include that in the offer. So they could take that into consideration with all the offers that are presented. And so the agent, it was like we blew her mind. She was like, what? So you're not paying anything? I'm like, no, we're paying your whole fee. Just put it in the offer. and she did not know what to do. So then her team leader calls me, and I get on the phone with her and the team leader, and I'm basically talking them through the whole settlement and like, here's what's happened and here's why, and here's what we're doing. And that's going to be tough. In our market tomorrow. Oh, I'm picturing in my head, just like the people crashing in streets and everything. I know it's not going to happen, but like, that's the image I have in my head, because tomorrow the commissions get shut off in our MLS. And so you'll see zeros from now on. So, I am downloading the entire MLS and sorting by commission so that I can run numbers on what people are currently offering and see how it changes. And I am also very curious if someone currently has an agreement in place to offer buyer agent compensation in our state, they could continue to offer buyer agent compensation. Now we have 3 ways. We used to only have 2 ways. The 2 previous ways were the buyer can pay you as a buyer agent, or the listing agent can pay you, or listing company can pay you. And you normally did not receive anything from the seller unless it was a for sale by owner. Now they've added a 3rd way where the seller can pay you. And so some are saying, well, this is going to allow the real estate agents to double dip, but that's not how the math works out at the title companies. So it shouldn't allow the agents to double dip. But the agent now has a fee that they charge the buyer. The buyer now gives us permission to accept partial or complete payment of that fee from the listing agent or the seller. And we can accept it from the seller even if they're listed by a brokerage. That's the change for us. So we have 3 ways now to accept compensation. And it will be interesting to me if I call an agent and say, what is the seller offering? And they say, well, they're not offering anything. And I'm looking at the MLS printout I have that says they're offering 3. That's going to be an interesting discussion because now I know what they have priced in. So at least I'll know until the market resets, I'll know all the numbers that sellers have in their mind of a priced in compensation to a buyer agent. So it will at least help our clients write offers, and try not to skip a beat. What's up, Vic? Vic _DFW _bearded _realtor on Instagram says, hello, fellow bearded realtor. Usually listen on my way home from work, but was able to tune into the live show today. Awesome. Well, thanks for dropping by. JD Leonard said, good point about paradigm shift.
Right.
Yeah, go ahead, Jack.
So MLS PIN is leaving compensation in as of now, but not making it a mandatory field, and you can either leave it blank or put 0 in there if you'd like. But the common thread I'm hearing from local brokerages in Massachusetts is that they are going to choose the option of not being involved in cooperating compensation, yet having the seller be prepared to pay. So taking that one step further, I'm envisioning, if that's what sticks, that we see a listing contract that references whatever, half of the fee, with a checkbox as to whether the seller wants to pay up to X percent for to a buyer agent's brokerage.
Yeah,
because most sellers are going to say, hey, you know what? It's not out there anywhere. We'll consider it if it comes through in an offer. But why am I going to sign a listing contract with you for 5% when I'm not representing anywhere out there that there's compensation to a buyer's agent's broker?
Yeah, that's what I think is going to happen. I think agents that, so there is a contingency of agents out there that are like, oh, we're going to do our part to ensure that, we list properties who are paying buyer agent compensation. And that's folly. I mean, that's not going to last very long at all. And I think people are going to quickly figure out in the first month or two that just doesn't work. Well, active realtors who are trying to list properties will figure out in a month or two that doesn't work. I think the most common thing is going to be there's no offer of compensation, period. And maybe they'll, in a buyer's market, where the sellers are begging agents to come and show their properties, that's when you're going to start to see an increase in the buyer agent compensation covered, just like you would see an increase in the seller concessions for loans. But here's the difference. If I tell the general population, hey, come by my house and I will pay 2% towards your loan and closing cost. That's pretty good, right? That's not bad. But if I say, hey, come by my house, I'm offering a 2% buyer agent compensation. I not only have the attention of any buyers that are in the marketplace, because if they're not represented, they can say, well, that 2% compensation that goes for me elsewhere. But now I get the attention of real estate agents who could be working with 10 to 15 to 20 buyers at a time. So I think when we will see an increase in the sellers offering compensation to buyers is when sellers are sitting on the market and not getting the showings and thinking, what else can we do? We'll see what happens, but I think everything's going to go to zero fast, and then it will start to adjust. I don't think a lot of people are saying, oh, it's not going to change. Sellers are going to still offer in our marketplace. I don't think that's true. I think it's going to change immediately and will be zeroed out immediately. Now, I think most people are still going to be using a real estate agent to buy, just because there's so many other terms that you can negotiate on. I mean, there were 3 deals this week that we rescued. One for a client that was looking for a property, had no idea how to negotiate the various terms, got a counter and was willing to put up more money. But we said, no, let's not put up more money, because we feel like if they want their terms, then we get it at our price. And so we negotiated on their behalf and got the deal for them. Other situation happened where a lender was dragging his feet. We called the lender, who represents the buyer of a property we have listed, and got the deal pushed through and closed on Friday, which is when everyone said it was supposed to close. And without the expertise of a real estate agent to know that, no, by this time they should already have everything in place. There shouldn't be any problems. And if they don't, they have time to do that. The buyer's just going to get dragged around, hopeless. And then the seller's going to say, you know what? I'm not going to change that close date because we have a backup offer. So we're just going to cancel the deal. And the buyer's going to say, what? Because they're not represented by an agent. Who knows? So I think the value of the agent is going to become more evident, and the agents that are not valuable, that don't have anything to offer their buyers, that don't have anything to offer their clients, will go back to bartending. I could say that as a former bartender.
and a former bartender here too. At the same time, I still think that the compensation for the buyer's agent will continue to come from the proceeds through a check from the seller at the closing.
I think it'll happen. Yes, I agree with that. I think it'll continue to happen from the seller, from the proceeds. I just don't think it's going to be offered up front anymore.
Totally agree.
Give me just a second. I have to cough. I'm going to grab my coffee. That was building up. That was building up for a bit. I kept muting myself to clear my throat. All right, so the NAR settlement is still an enigma. Good word use, Inman. NAR settlement is still an enigma for some ahead of the big August 17th deadline. So I guess this was on their stage over at Inman Connect. With proposed commission changes to set to take effect nationwide August 17th, there's a best case scenario on how the National Association of Realtors settlement plays out on the ground. Then there's reality, which we've just been talking about. There was a question that was asked that was interesting. Let me see if I can build up this question right. I don't want to waste your time. I just want to give you the right information here. All right. At NAR's mid-year conference in May, the trade group's legal team promoted the practice of cooperative compensation, detailing the ways that listing brokers could advertise offers of compensation to buyer brokers outside of the MLS. Stark contrast to what the U.S. Department of Justice has indicated they wanted to see happen. No offers of compensation from listing brokers to buyer brokers made anywhere. And there was one realtor, they said they were a flummoxed realtor, asked the panelist, I'm wondering, are we doing something wrong? For the Indiana realtor who voiced the confusion over the changes at issue were best practices around buyer agreements and protocols for reaching out to listing agents. To peers in the audience and panelists, Casey Walker Johnson of Windermere and Kendall Bonner of EXP and Ed Zorn of the CRMLS, she let slip that those calls from buyer agents and listing agents were already happening. Quote, this is what people have led us to believe that we should be doing, she said. Calling each agent before you even show a house. Quote, we have our buyer broker agreement. What do you have negotiated with your seller? Unquote. The panelists, including moderator James Dwiggins, CEO of Next Home, all disapproved of the practices described by the attendee. That's exactly that's what everyone's going to do. Why would that be disapproval? Because your buyer has a fee that they have to pay. Wouldn't you call and say, hey, are you offering anything? I mean, I call and talk to listing agents all the time and say, those floors look crap. Are you offering anything for the floors? And I don't say it like that. I'm much nicer on the phone. Always very nice. I mean, that's normal to say, I know my buyer is going to have this expense. Is your seller offering anything to cover the expense? Why would this be any different? This is what everyone wanted. One MLS I know that will remain nameless in Florida, they're instructing their agents to get an agreement for every listing and call each listing agent, find out what they're offering, and write an agreement specifically for that property for each listing. What? That's insane. If panelists were unanimous in their disapproval of the Indiana Realtors' actions, they were also in lockstep on the merits of Zorn's characterization's, quote, consumer-centric model. Instead of propping up the old commission system, Zorn said listing agents should concern themselves solely with their own fee. Oh, the model is really simple, Dwiggins said. Sellers willing to entertain any and all requests, put it in your offer. That's what I prefer. I just said that's what I prefer. That's not what the article says. Buyer agent, put in whatever you want in the offer. It becomes a negotiation. That's a way better practice. But still, with that negotiation, the buyer agent's going to want to know, and the buyer's going to want to know up front, what are we thinking about here? Because if the seller is offering anything, then I think the buyer's going to want to know up front. So I think the ones... Go ahead, Jack.
Because if a buyer... If you've got a buyer's agreement that says the buyer's going to pay you X percent and the seller only says they're going to give you Y, then the buyer's on the hook to pay the difference.
Right. So the buyers are going to be more involved in the commission discussions. It's going to be more of an issue.
That's right.
But that's what they wanted.
That's what they want. And by the way, is there a winner here?
Yeah. There's a clear winner. The attorneys.
With a little DOJ sprinkled on top.
Yeah, with a little government action.
Yep. Throw some government on top of the lawyers.
Can we call it Biden's DOJ? Is that okay? All right. Dusty Martin in politics. Not in politics. Dusty Martin in Arizona said, I'm personally kind of amused watching agents in my area wail and flail about our new guidelines when I've been using buyer broker agreements for 10 years. And some of those agents are in full meltdown mode. Yes. We have been using buyer broker agreements also since I started in 2007. I'm an old man. Olivier said, all of these all these conversations reduce the role of agents to dollars when it should be a conversation about the value you bring to the table. Hear, hear. Cheerio. Matt LaMarche said, Atlanta real estate advisor. Wait, that's his full. Hang on. Matt LaMarche, Atlanta real estate advisor, said, yeah, a lot of buyers don't know what they can negotiate or even how much they can negotiate. I was talking about the services that we offer and how we were getting deals for our people. Mike Velez says, I recently had an agent refuse to show a listing of mine because he had a buyer agreement of 0.5% higher than what we were offering. So you were offering, I'm just going to throw numbers out there, 2, and his buyer agreement said 2.5. He said our offering amount was customary for the area and price range. So the agent refused to show it. Now, this is what they're going to say. Well, my client didn't want to see it because they would have to be on the hook for that 0.5. So this is, I mean, they have made this a gigantic issue. We were talking in the contributor chat. This will likely lead to a bunch of lawsuits. And somebody said that it'll take about 6 months for the lawsuits to start being filed. Olivier said, and the buyer's agent commission will be the reason the transaction doesn't happen and shit will happen. Yeah. I don't know why I censored. This is an adult show. Can't wait for the first lawsuit from the buyer that didn't get the property because the buyer agent wouldn't reduce their compensation. Mandy said, we're lucky to be in Maine because we've already been required here for a long time. I've always thought that was weird that the states didn't require defining a relationship. Yeah, we have 2 documents here. One is a non-exclusive, so they can use anyone. They could sign 10 non-exclusives. The problem is it also opens them up to being invoiced by 10 real estate agents whenever they close on the deal. So that could happen. It's rare, but it could happen. An exclusive kind of trumps them all. And so an exclusive agency agreement takes over and replaces all of those non-exclusives. And in the exclusive, it does define the fee that the buyer is responsible for. And then they give us permission to accept partial or complete payment of that fee from somewhere else. So it's not a huge difference for us. We've always used the exclusive. We actually don't work with, I don't work with non-investor clients. I understand some investors need a non-exclusive because they're working with a bunch of different agents. And usually we put them on the leftovers list. So our exclusive investors, they get the choice stakes, right? They get the best stuff. We send to them. And then if they don't want it, then we send it to our non-exclusive. That's Brian Hershey. What's up, man? He said I'm here for the donuts. Yeah, me too. I've probably had too many. All right. So that's an article from the NAR. From Inman about the NAR settlement. The NAR released some consumer information and resources ahead of the practice changes. And I don't know if you guys have seen this or took the time to check it out, but there's a fact sheet. So there's a sellers and buyers fact sheet that I thought were pretty interesting. Let me share this. Is that home sellers? Here's what's in it for you. Is that what you're saying? Yeah. All right. So Greg Meyer said, what do you do in the case of commission is being offered higher than your agreement? I've been told that we're not able to accept more in NYC unless there's an amendment to our agreement. Greg, I think that's normal. I think that's what most states are saying as well. That's what we've been told. And then we're also told good luck because your client would have to say, yeah, I don't want that money. You can have it, because any leftover is not supposed to go to the seller, supposedly. What I've been told is the leftover goes to the buyer. But I think that's weird. I think the leftover should go to the seller. Because they're the ones offering it. And if the buyer only takes a small amount, then the leftover should go back to the seller. So I'm waiting on that language. We haven't seen our new contracts yet. And I want to see the language in the contract that says, what's the compensation that you're offering for the buyer agent fee? Here it is. Leftovers will go to who? Because if it goes back to the seller, then the seller should be like, well, I mean, this is crazy because you could have an agent that just says, oh yeah, that's exactly what our agreement says, and then fills it out. But you could have an agent that's like, oh, I'll give 10%. But then, you have a buyer agent that's only able to accept 2. And then where's the rest? The 8% goes back to the seller. Don't do that, sellers, because there will be agents that fill out that form afterwards and be like, oh yeah, it's always been, I mean, I'm a 10% agent. It's just always what I've done. And this seller happened to cover it all. So, how do your clients normally respond to that, Greg? Yeah, they're going to want the money. I mean, I have the greatest clients in the world. We have wonderful clients and we love working with them. And if given the opportunity for them to make an extra $1,000 or for me to make an extra $1,000, 9 times out of 10, they're going to take the grand. Interestingly though, I have had people tip me, not directly. It went through the broker and all that stuff. It was legal. But I have had people pay me more for the job we did for them, because they were able to save so much money, or I have had sellers have way more money at closing than they thought because they ran their own numbers and they were like, man, this is great. This is way more than we needed, have a little extra. So that's happened a couple of times, but I would say for the most part, it's super rare.
Olivier tipped you today.
Yeah. Olivier gave me 70 cents. So now I need him. I need that Canada to Arkansas referral, Olivier.
Nobody wants to live in Arkansas, Ray. You're not from Canada.
We kind of want to keep it that way, Olivier. We don't want your kind here, sir.
Coming up north.
All right, so here's the home sellers. Here's what the NAR settlement means for you. This is consumer-facing material, and it's just got a bullet point list. I'm going to run down these bullet points, and then we'll look at the buyer one together. You still have a choice of offering compensation to buyer brokers. You may consider doing this as a way of marketing your home or making your listing more attractive to buyers. I don't want to soapbox it or talk about it too long, but that annoys me because by the same token, they say as a buyer broker, you can't get excited and want to go show a property when someone is offering more. So the way they're framing this is it's going to make it more attractive to who? Buyers. So if it's supposed to be more attractive to buyers, then what do I need to know before I show it? The amount the seller is offering. So what am I going to have to do? I have to call the agent and figure out what it is, which is exactly what they're saying not to do. It's stupid. All right. So anyway, I'm not going to stay on that long. Your agent must conspicuously, not inconspicuously, your agent must conspicuously disclose to you and obtain your approval for any payment or offer of payment that a listing broker will make to another broker acting for buyers. That's what we've always done in Arkansas. That's no change for us. This disclosure must be made to you in writing in advance of any payment or agreement to pay another broker acting for the buyers and must specify the amount of rate of such payment. It's always been in our listing agreement. If you choose to approve the offer of compensation, there are changes on how this can happen. You, as the seller, can make an offer of compensation, but your agent cannot include it on the multiple listing service, MLSs or local marketplace. Oh, then it tells them what an MLS is. Your agent can advertise your listing via off MLS platforms such as social media, flyers, and websites. So you can advertise your listing. I'm assuming they mean that you can also include the seller concessions there. You as a seller can still offer buyer concessions on the MLS, for example, concessions for buyer's closing costs. Mandy Wheeler said, so dumb. Here is what the settlement doesn't change. Agents who are realtors are here to help you navigate the process. This is just boilerplate sales speak. That's right. You have choices. Compensation for your agent remains fully negotiable. Yeah, that's always been the same and never changed. All right, so that is the guide for sellers. Let's go back and look at the one for buyers. And I think this would be good for boilerplate social media content, maybe a little bit of state specific stuff, or at least like an explainer video that you could send people when they're like, I don't really understand the compensation changes. You can say, here are the compensation changes. It may not be good for your Instagram, but it might be good to throw into the text feed when they ask the question. All right, here's what the settlement means for buyers. You will sign a written agreement with your agent before touring a home. Unless you're in Colorado, right? Because Colorado is saying, you guys can't do that. And that will be litigated. So you also need to check. So the National Association of Realtors is a trade organization. It does not trump your local law. So the National Association of Realtors is making recommendations to the trade organization, and you as a trade member should follow those recommendations because you said you would when you joined, even if you were handcuffed to join or else you couldn't use the MLS. You said you would when you joined. However, you're also a licensed real estate agent, and your license law, you need to make sure lines up with the NAR agreement. Now, in most states, they're reviewing this NAR change, and they are making adjustments to the real estate commission stuff. So for our state, for instance, we are the real estate commission is pretty much just going along with whatever the NAR is saying. So so in Colorado, they're pushing back a bit. So in Colorado, they're saying, I don't know that you can require somebody to show a property or to sign a document, or else you're not going to show them a home. So that's probably going to lead to touring agreements similar to what Zillow has put out there. Anyway, for buyers, they will sign a written agreement with you, your agent, before touring a home. Before signing the agreement, you should ensure that it reflects the terms you have negotiated with your agent, and that you understand exactly what the services and value will be provided and for how much. At least they mention value on the NAR version of this. This also means that you should, as a real estate agent, probably have a consultation, and there will be a lot less, hey, will you show me this property today at 1? What? I've never met you before in my entire life, but yeah, let me go unlock that door for you. That's going to happen way less. So it's going to be very inconvenient for home buyers that just want to go kick tires, which is not necessarily a bad thing. But I've turned a lot of tire kickers into full-time buyers and have serviced them well. So that's going to make that more difficult. The buyer agreement must include 4 components considering compensation, a specific and conspicuous disclosure of the amount of real estate compensation the real estate agent will receive and how much this will be determined. Compensation that is objective, so flat fee, percent, hourly rate, and that is not open-ended. Cannot have a buyer broker. Compensation shall be whatever the amount the seller is offering the buyer. This would actually negate our non-exclusive agreement because it basically says we will take whatever the seller gives us for compensation. So I think they're going to have to make that change in our state and take that off. A term that prohibits the agent from receiving compensation for brokerage services from any source that exceeds the amount rate to the agreement with the buyer. So this is what's going to prevent all buyer agents from double dipping. It basically says that if you're charging 3% as your fee and the seller is paying 2%, you do not collect 5%. You collect 2% from the seller and 1% from the buyer. Or I assume in some states you could also receive it from the real estate agent, but it's from the buyer. So a conspicuous, they're using conspicuous a lot, and it's so close to how normal people use the word inconspicuous. So they mean like obvious statement, a conspicuous statement that broker fees and commissions are fully negotiable and not set by law. So they want to make sure that everyone knows via the Sherman Antitrust Act that there's no collusion in our industry. It goes on to say written agreement shall apply to both in-person and live virtual home tours. So that's interesting. So when someone says, hey, can you go show me this property? And you say, no, we need to meet and I got to give you this document and we're going to talk about services and value, blah, blah, blah. And they say, well, could you just go over there and send me a video? Your answer should be no, that's technically still showing you the home and I have to have a written agreement in place. Interesting. You do not need a written agreement if you're just speaking to an agent at an open house or asking them about their services. The seller may agree to offer compensation to your agent. This practice is permitted, but the offer cannot be shared on the multiple listing service. You can still accept concessions from the seller, such as offers to pay your closing costs. Why would they put that in the changes? I mean, then it says, here's what doesn't change. That's always been the same. There's actually a couple of these things that have kind of, I guess maybe it's state specific. Agents who are realtors. Okay, then that's the sales speak. Same sales speak that we had at the bottom of the other one. So that's the guide for home buyers. And then there's a guide for home sellers. Look it up. It's on the NAR website, National Association of Realtors. It's the document that has the link to both of them. If you want to Google it and find this on your own, is NAR releases new consumer-focused resources ahead of practice changes in settlement agreement. They probably could have wordsmithed that one a bit, but that's the title. All right, let me get to some of your comments. Dusty says, the funny thing here is that our new forms means that it can't accept more than the BBEA. Yep. So if the seller's offering 5, but the agent signed for 2.5, the buyer gets the rest as a credit. That's what does your document say, Dusty? Have you seen it where it says the buyer gets the rest as a credit? I haven't seen that yet. And I don't know why it wouldn't go back to the seller. Why doesn't that number go back to the seller? Olivier says that won't happen too often. Yeah, you'd have to get that addendum signed. Or the seller doesn't pay as much, and agents are losing it because they don't know how to write the BBEA to cover that. My buyer broker agreement has always been the X amount or percent as per the MLS, whichever is greater. Now it'll just be or as per offerings from seller. Well, that's what they said. You can't, I don't think you could put that term in there anymore. I don't think you can say on the buyer agreement that you'll take whatever the seller gives you, this amount or whatever the seller gives you. I think you consult with your broker, as we'd like to say in those big mastermind groups, but I think that one's got to go. Let's see. Mandy says, Mandy Wheeler from Maine. You know what I'm wondering? I wonder if Zillow owned Showing Time. Will be where we can put the buyer agency offering, which makes us even more reliant on Zillow. So I don't think it could be on Showing Time. From what I have heard from industry experts, if you put it on Showing Time, it's like you're starting up another database, and the settlement explicitly says you cannot do that. So there can be no other database or listing where you show commission amounts of real estate agents on properties that are not your own. I submitted the question for Arkansas because someone on the show, I think Courtney on the show last week, said that they're going to do an Excel spreadsheet or a Google sheet that has all of their listings listed and then how much commission they're offering on various listings, just to make it easy when people show. They just send one link and it's got all the updated information. That's not a bad idea. I just want to make sure it's allowed, because so far they've just said you can put it on your website and on flyers, just like you would offer any other concessions or compensation. Yeah, Greg said it can be posted on individual brokers' websites. That is true. And there's a lot of brokers that use third-party IDX feeds. I know we do. Well, we have 2 IDX feeds. Real Broker has their own, but we also have an IDX feed that is through Lofty or Chime, which we have a deal with as a company to get that less expensive for each agent. And that's what my website is. And I am trying to figure out from Lofty, is there going to be a way where I can quickly enter in the buyer broker compensation that's being offered on those, if there is any. And this is why, again, I just don't think it's going to last, because it's so hard to communicate that compensation and to find it anywhere other than calling And I know real estate agents love to call other agents because they always answer their phone. It's just going to be difficult to find that number. And so I think more and more, we're just going to see zeroed out and people are going to put it in offers. What else was I going to say on that now? I can't remember now. Dusty says, it's already happening in my area. The fallout's hilarious. You can't take more than the BBEA says, but that's why I've always added the whichever is greater. I don't, that's what I'm curious though, Dusty. Can we add that? Can we add the whichever is greater? If so, that's a wonderful way to phrase that. I should ask my broker. Ask your broker, everyone. Ask your broker. We haven't even got to the economic news yet, but this is such a huge story. I did want to get to one more industry T story. This is from Mike Del Preet. He was talking about agent turnover, agent churn. 10% of agents changed brokerages in the last 12 months. That seems like a lot. I don't know the historic numbers, but that seems like a lot. This is where I got the number that 47% of the 1.4 million agents in the analysis sold 0 houses in the past 12 months. Now, given 26% of those agents were on a team. So a lot of those numbers don't go under the team members. They go towards the team leader. So it shows that they sell 0, but in reality, they sell more than that. Now, some teams let agents have their volume. So small percentage of that 26 is going to be somewhere over here. But agent churn, when an agent changes brokerages, it does not include agents new or exiting the industry. So people that are brand new and sign up are not including these agent churn numbers, and people that retire, to say it kindly, are not included in these numbers either. But including non-producers, 10% or around 144,000 agents changed brokerages in the past 12 months. And lower producers in the 1 million to 10 million range were the most likely to churn. Isn't that interesting? Tenure matters. The longer an agent has been in the industry, the less likely they are to change. So here's the agent churn by tenure years. And then by office size, the larger the office, the more churn. So offices of 500 agents or less had lower churn. Offices of more than that had a huge amount of churn. There was something that said 33%. Okay. The largest brokerage offices with over 500 agents, the churn machines with the highest percentage of agents joining and leaving, around 33% more likely to leave a big office versus a small one. So just interesting numbers. It made me want to put out this idea I've had that says something like, how to not change brokerages, and just give, here's some advice. If you're thinking about changing, here's all the steps you need to go through to know if you should actually change brokerages or if the problem is you. But I got to say that real kindly, because I'm at a brokerage that we love to take on new people, and you're incentivized to attract people, but we also don't want everyone. And if you're a problem at your current company, you're going to be a problem at your next company. And we definitely don't want that problem. So I thought about putting out something that was here's your guide to stay at your brokerage, and here's what you should look at. And there's got to be a segment in there that's the Michael Jackson. I'm talking about the man in the mirror. Okay, if you have only sold one house and you've changed brokerages over the last 4 years 3 times, and you've sold one house a year, I bet there are other people at that brokerage that are selling more than one house. So it's not the brokerage. Now, it may take somebody a little time to find the right home, but you could even perform well at a very bad brokerage. So also maybe a little introspection. All right, well, let's look at some economic news. We're going to zoom through this pretty quickly because it's fairly easy to understand. This is the rise of the renter nation. America's rent population is growing 3 times faster than its homeowner population amid the rise in home buying cost. There's the graph from Redfin. U.S. is adding renter households faster than homeowner households. The pink that's kind of behind there are the rental households year-over-year growth, and the blue is homeowner households year-over-year growth. And you can definitely see that recently the pink has peaked up towards like 2.5%, and then the little blue is down closer to like 0.75% or 0.5%. So yeah, 2.8% is the first quarter of 2024, which is the largest gain since 2015. Renter households have formed faster than homeowner households for 3 straight quarters, partly because homebuyer costs have risen much faster than rents. America has been on a multifamily building spree, which I feel like we've talked about this almost every week for a while. 855,000 to be exact are the rental households added over the past year, but it's also ramped up construction, which helped to accommodate the rise in that rental growth. All right, I want to get to the next article. We are going to go quick. Homebuyers aren't yet reacting to lower mortgage rates. Now, this was August 1st. It has been 6 days. Okay, so we'll see. But this article came to us August 1st. Share this. Am I on the right? Okay, yes. I'm on the right tab. Despite improving affordability, pending home sales are down 5.7% year over year, the biggest decline in 9 months, and mortgage purchase applications are down 14%. That's largely because even though it's more affordable to buy a home now than it was in the spring, prices and payments are still near record highs. That is true. We did have another dip though. So this dip came out, and then shortly after that, we had another dip that came out. So this article was released today. Mortgage rates plunged to the lowest level in more than a year after a weak unemployment report. Actually, this was August 2nd. This is the next day. So there were three drops here. So the average rate on the popular 30-year fixed dropped 22 basis points to 6.4% Friday. That's the lowest rate since April 2023. The 15-year fixed fell to 5.89%. That's the lowest level since early May 2023. Now, this is great news for all of you that have continued to lead generate for the past 90 days when rates were high, because you will be able to call those clients back and say, hey, rates are actually lower. We already have you pre-approved. Go visit with your lender, see what it does for the increase in how much you can afford, and let's see what's out there right now. Dusty, I see that comment. That's funny. Yes, I'm going to have the "it's not me, it's you" flow chart on that document for agents of why to stay at your brokerage. Okay. Between Powell's equivocal openness to multiple cuts in 2024 on Wednesday and this morning's sharper, weaker jobs report, the more aggressive rate cut narrative is quickly coming into focus. Now, for a while, this is Matthew Graham, Chief Operating Officer at Mortgage News Daily. And we always talk about Mortgage News Daily always saying both things. They say, and so he said the more aggressive rate cut is quickly coming into focus. So they say a lot of like things that they can easily say, well, we only said it came into focus. We didn't say they would do it. But at the beginning of the year, we were told there would be several rate cuts, and then inflation wasn't doing anything. And then they started backing up from that, saying, I think last time, potentially there may only be one more rate cut. And now it looks like they're talking about multiple rate cuts towards the end of the year. So I know the prediction special we did at the beginning of the year, I think there were some people that were saying rates would be in the 5s. We'll see how close they were. It could still get there. 30-year fixed rate started the week at 6.81%. So the drop in just the past 5 days is dramatic. The recent high was 7.52% in late April. I feel like it hovered around there for a long time. All right, so let's look at the next article. Let's see, is this one? Oh, this is just, so the other folks that covered the same story were Inman, so it's a duplicate article that we'll have down in the description. So this one was released today. Weekly mortgage refi demand soars 16% as rates sink to the lowest level in a year. Now, why suddenly would a whole bunch of people refi when rates aren't? I mean, it didn't go down to 3, it didn't go down to 5, it didn't go down. I mean, it barely went down to 6.5 from 6.82. So who is refining at 6.5? It's not people that have 3%, What I think is that people are taking their equity. Now you have to wonder, why are people suddenly taking equity? I think people have had ideas of, I'm not going to move because I'm in a 3% home. And if I move, I'm going to be paying triple or double what I was paying. So let's add on, or let's remodel, or let's build another room, or let's finish out the garage, or let's add an ADU, or whatever it is. And I think people have equity that they've been sitting on, just waiting for a time when rates dipped a bit to where now they're going to take that money and go do home improvements. I think that's what's happening. They're going to add on, they're going to put in the pool, they're going to do the stuff. We'll see. With a jump of 16%, there are people, I mean, they had projects in mind. They're not just refining to refi. I mean, maybe there were people sitting at 8% that bought last October that are refining to save that 1.5%, but a lot of that's going to get eaten up with the refi fees. So let's look at and the reason why I guess this previously on all of these articles, we only look at the applications to purchase. That's all we're looking at. Applications to purchase are 1%. And here's what happened to the refi. It went down, it went up. And it's not usually significant. I think this has significant messaging for us in the real estate market as we're looking at homes that are out of date, that need to be updated, upgraded. I think we're going to see a huge jump. And if I was someone giving investment advice, which I'm not, so do not take my investment advice, but I would be looking at stocks like Home Depot, Lowe's, that kind of stuff. Because I really think that a lot of that 16% refi is going to go straight to them as people improve their homes. Yeah, applications to purchase a home were up 1%, which that's to be expected. It's not as sensitive to those rate shifts, but they were 11% lower than the same week a year ago. Janice, did I see you raise your hand? Let me see if I can pull you up here. What's up, Armando? I see you, man. Oh no, Janet, you sound like you're in a robot. It's very choppy. Now I can hear you.
Sidebar. Okay. Yeah, it looked like you were on the phone. Oh my gosh. First sunlight. So do you think that some of those refinances would be from when they were offering for people to refinance when the rates dropped? Would they have to do an application? Would that create a rush of those?
It could. So I think what you're talking about is what was it called? The 3-2-1 loans, or the 1-2-3 loans, or whatever, where they were saying, right now you can have a much lower rate, but then you can refi in the next 2 years for free when rates dip. It could, but I'm wondering how much of that, I'm talking out loud. I'm processing, and my brain is processing faster than my mouth is speaking. One of the questions I would have is, if there are several rate cuts on the horizon, surely a lender is going to be looking at that with their client, saying, hey, all these rate cuts that are coming up, it'll probably go a little bit lower. Why don't you hang on? But that is speculative, and it might go up. So I guess if somebody needed it because they're not able to make their payment, that would lead to a huge jump in the people that are struggling to make their payment, that need to refi because they bought. But I think whenever those rates were at the 8 and 7%, weren't they getting like 2 years worth of a low rate before they had to refi? But that would be, if we don't see an uptick in the remodels, then you may be right, Janice.
Yeah, I was just thinking that it was that if rates dropped, they were getting a discounted or a free refi one time in like a year or two to lower their rate. So I was just thinking maybe people are getting into that time period, or like you said, they're maybe in a tight spot financially, that because we did get the drop, they're went ahead and refinancing now to try and alleviate some of that.
I'm wondering what mortgage rates were 1 year ago today. I don't know how to find that. Something right here is saying 6.8, but that may be today's. I would be curious if we could look up, well, here's the Federal Reserve mortgage rate. I mean, that's such a...
Hold on, I'll look it up, right?
In June of 2024, it was 6.9. That's 24. Let's go back. In September, it was 5.8. So I think when we saw those 7.79 was in October of 2023. And I think that's when we were seeing the banks be like, hey, you get a couple of free Wi-Fi or refis or a free, but that's only like a 1% difference. Is that enough difference in payment to refi? But this is a wonderful question, Janice. I know what you're talking about. I wonder how many of them are construction loans that are people refining out of their interest and they've just waited until
That's
rates
a good
dipped.
point too. Yeah.
But we'll see. We'll see what happens. If you start to see an uptick in the traffic at your local home improvement store, then call your pool friends that own pool companies and see if they've had an increase in lately. I'd be very interested in knowing that. Because we just read 2 articles 2 weeks ago that talked about the death of the backyard pool, or ADU, people that want to build another place in the back for mom or for friends or for Airbnb. And especially if you're in California, ADUs are becoming legal in more places. So call around to a couple of places and see if they've seen an increase maybe next week. There's another story about from Redfin. Homebuyers have gained nearly $30,000 in purchasing power over the last month. $30,000 in purchasing power over the last month. So somebody that could afford a $430,000 home can now afford a $460,000 home. So that's for a home buyer that's on a $3,000 monthly payment. That's cool. So all of your buyers that are like, we're just going to wait until homes are cheaper. Well, they're cheaper for them. I don't know that prices are going to go down, but the homes are cheaper for those buyers because now they can afford more home for the same price. And there's 2 more articles here I want to get to. Nearly 25% of Gen Z house hunters are willing to sacrifice safety to afford a home. What? They're willing to live in an unsafe place. Nearly 1 in 5 house hunters were willing to sacrifice their physical safety to find a home they could afford within the next year. Nearly 1 in 4 Gen Z respondents said they're willing to live somewhere less safe for the right price. Is that I guess they're just taking into account what are the likelihood that I will be injured, unsafe? I think that's wild. Somebody on mute, were you going to say something?
No, I just jumped back in the room.
Oh, okay.
You were breaking.
Oh, sorry. Younger generations have
They don't want to be like their parents. That's the problem.
They don't want to be like their parents in a nice, safe place.
And they're like, we're going to rebel. Yeah.
But their parents, when they were their age, lived in terrible conditions. I mean, have you ever talked to your clients' parents about their first home? I regularly love to do this in front of the client because oftentimes like mom and dad are there checking out the house for their baby girl. And they're like, oh, we need something much nicer for her. And I'm like, well, this is a pretty good house. Tell me about your first place. And they're like, oh, it was a dump. We lived right next to the insane asylum and we had visitors. I mean, like the stories they share are absolutely crazy. And now I'll look at them and say, well, this is much better than that, isn't it? And they'll say, I guess you're right. Yeah, this is way better than that. Like, okay.
Yeah, and it was only 2 cartons of blueberries and a couple peaches and
yeah. Uphill both ways. And yeah. Let's see. Safety is a common reason why people are moving in the first place. I guess if you're moving for safety, you're not willing to go to a less safe area because now you're in one of the least safe areas. 1 in 5 Gen Xers said that safety and crime was a contributing factor for their move, compared to 17.6% of boomers, 15.3% of millennials, and 12.8% of Gen Zers. Overall safety concerns were 4th on the most cited reason. Let's see, wanted more space was number 1. Lower overall cost of living was number 2. Lower home prices was number 3. And then concerns for safety is number 4. More space still the driving factor of the reason why people want to move. All right, and the last article I thought was interesting. Thousands more people are moving in than out of fire and flood-prone America, fueled by migration to Texas and Florida. Thousands more people are moving in than out of fire and flood-prone. So even with the skyrocketing cost of insurance that we've been talking about on the show, more people are moving into than out of America's disaster-prone areas, where you can see fire is up and flood. On the graphs, it's just a funny inverted chart that shows more people moving in than out. The opposite occurred in low-risk areas. America's low fire risk counties saw a net outflow of 38,401 people in 2023. Low flood risk counties experienced a net outflow of 6,892. So obviously, we're just big risk takers. That's what can be cleaned here. I mean, this is an interesting. You would think it would be opposite. I mean, obviously, there's more reasons, right? A lot of people are moving to Texas, which faces high fire risk, and a lot of people are moving to Florida, which faces high flood. So they're coming from. All right. So Riverside County, California, though. Net inflow 7,807, so they're positive 7. They have a 78.5% of fire risk. There's a 21.5% chance that your home doesn't burn. Is that right? That's wild. Is that number correct? Am I reading this right? Share of homes facing high fire risk. Yeah. So of 100 homes out there, 22 of them face low fire risk. The rest of them face high fire risk. I know it's not 100% across the rest of those 78%, but still, that's wild. Parker County, Texas is high fire risk. They had a net inflow as well. So obviously something else is driving it. It doesn't appear to be that people have natural disasters checked off on their bingo card of search criteria. It appears to maybe be taxes and politics. That's we have seen, and there is a Redfin article about the migration of people due to politics. So interesting. Dusty Martin says a lot of my buyers under 400K just can't afford a safe neighborhood anymore. It's sad, but that's what they're willing to buy the ugly. But that's why being willing to buy the ugly house is important. Or being willing to move to Arkansas. For $400,000, you can be in a nice little gated community here. Speaking of migrating. All right, guys. Well, thanks for joining us this week. I had fun. And I'm glad I finally got to use the T sounder. So thanks for the listeners that suggested that, Rebecca. Let me find, there it is. There's our guitar. So thanks everybody for joining us. Next week, we'll be back. I am going to the Tom Ferry conference. If you're going, I'd love to know. So shoot me a DM over on Instagram, Rayzorback, RAYZORBACK. And hopefully I'll see you there. It's towards the end of August in Dallas. So if you're going, let me know. I'd love to connect. Thank you guys for listening. And please don't hesitate to send me articles that you think are interesting or something that you find interesting in the real estate market. And we'll cover it on the show and get some insights from other agents around the country. That's what makes this thing different. So thank you guys, and I'll see you next week. Bye.